Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islamic Economics series.
Let's dive right in with a really powerful critique. But here's the thing. It doesn't come from an outsider. It's from Ronald Coase, a Nobel laureate in economics. He said that modern economics floats in the air and has little relation to what happens in the real world. Wow, that's not just a minor issue, right? That's a fundamental crisis, a huge gap between these elegant theories and the messy, beautiful reality of our actual lives.
So the big question is, how on earth did we get here? How did a field that's so central to our societies, to our policies, become so adrift from reality? That's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Well, believe it or not, this disconnect isn't some kind of mistake. It's actually baked right into the methodology of modern economics. You have influential thinkers like Milton Friedman who famously argued that it doesn't matter if a theory's assumptions are wildly unrealistic, as long as its predictions are kind of accurate. This effectively gave economists a green light to build these elaborate theoretical worlds that honestly look nothing like the one we actually live in.
To really get to the bottom of why this kind of thinking became acceptable, we have to do a little bit of time traveling. We need to look at a massive shift in Western philosophy that literally changed the rules of the game for what science was supposed to be.
And that critical turning point really starts with the philosopher Immanuel Kant. He came up with this really powerful distinction between two concepts, the noumena and the phenomena. Think of the noumena as the deep hidden reality of things, how they really are, underneath it all. And then you have the phenomena, which is just the appearances, the bits and pieces we can actually see and measure with our senses.
Now, this might sound abstract, but the impact was enormous. See, before Kant, the whole point of science was to use the appearances, the phenomena, as clues to figure out the hidden reality, the noumena. But Kant argued we can never truly know that deeper reality. So after him, the goal of science began to shift. It became less about discovering the ultimate truth and more about just creating models that fit the data we could observe. A subtle change, but one that took science from truth-seeking to just saving the appearances.
Then, in the 20th century, this idea got supercharged by a philosophy called logical positivism. Its core message was simple and brutal. If you can't see it, measure it, or test it, it's meaningless. Just forget about it. So all those unobservable things like morality, purpose, love, even God, they were all kicked out of the scientific conversation. Now here's the crazy part. Logical positivism as a philosophy eventually collapsed under its own weight, but its ghost still haunts the halls of economics today.
Okay, so we've got this shaky philosophical foundation. What happens when you build a whole social science on top of it? What are the actual real-world consequences when you decide to ignore the deep, unobservable realities of human life?
Well, the first major result is the invention of a very peculiar creature, Homo Economicus. This isn't a human being, it's a caricature. It's a purely selfish, pleasure-maximizing robot that goes through life like a walking calculator. This model completely ignores the things that actually drive us, our moral compass, our compassion, our need for community. And the funny thing is, mountains of empirical evidence show that this is just a terrible description of how real people actually behave.
You see, in its quest to be a hard science like physics, economics wanted to find these neat, universal laws that apply to everyone, everywhere, at all times. But here's the problem. People aren't atoms. We have values, we have cultures, and crucially, we have free will to make choices. By stripping all of that away, economics ended up with a science of a simplified robotic humanity that doesn't actually exist.
All right, so that's the diagnosis of the problem. But this is where the Islamic perspective offers such a profound and compelling alternative. It's not about just patching up the old models. It's about starting fresh, from a completely different and, I think, much richer foundation. Let's explore what that looks like.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. It couldn't be more stark. On one side, you have the selfish, materialistic, and totally predictable Homo Economicus. On the other, you have what we might call Homo Islamicus, a vision of the human being who is defined by generosity, by a deep yearning for spiritual growth, and the incredible capacity to change and transform. In this view, our desires aren't our masters. They are powerful forces that we are meant to guide and discipline.
The philosophical basis for this Islamic approach is something called realism, and it takes us right back to that original goal of science, to use what we can see to understand the hidden reality we can't. It views the world around us as being full of signs, full of clues that point to a deeper truth. And of course, this fits perfectly with the Quranic worldview, which constantly tells us to reflect on the signs in creation that point to the Creator.
So instead of that static, robotic model of a person, Islam gives us this beautiful, dynamic process, the journey of the soul, or the nafs.
We might start at the level of the commanding soul, which is driven by its basest desires, actually pretty similar to Homo Economicus. But through effort, through moral choice, we can grow. We can reach the self-blaming soul, where we feel guilt and strive to be better. And the ultimate goal is the contented soul, a state where doing good becomes our second nature. This journey, this transformation, is the very purpose of life.
Now, if you have a totally different understanding of what a human being is and what our purpose is, that's naturally going to lead to a radically different vision for society and its institutions. This isn't just philosophy. This has massive practical consequences for how we organize our economic life together.
Just take wealth management, for instance. The central institution in the modern system is the bank, which is designed fundamentally for private accumulation and profit maximization. The Islamic alternative is the waqf, the charitable endowment. Here the whole ethos changes. Excess wealth isn't just yours to hoard. It's a trust, an amana, from God, meant to be circulated for the good of the entire community, funding hospitals, schools, you name it.
Or think about managing risk. Modern insurance is a commercial product. It's a financial transaction where you transfer your individual risk to a company for a price. The Islamic alternative, takaful, is built on a completely different spirit. It's founded on cooperation and mutual support. It's not about profit. It's about a community coming together to say, if one of us falls, we will all be there to help them up. It's about collective social responsibility.
And finally, what about something as basic as work? In the modern view, labor is often reduced to just a commodity, something to be bought and sold in the marketplace, often leading to an adversarial relationship between employer and employee. But in the Islamic tradition, work is elevated to the level of worship, an ibadah. It's a sacred duty, a source of dignity, and a way to serve not just your family, but God and the entire community.
And this all leads us to the most crucial takeaway. These economic models we use, they aren't neutral observers. They're not just describing the world as it is. They actively shape it. In fact, studies have actually shown that teaching economic students the selfish model of Homo Economicus can make them behave more selfishly in real life. So the models are prescriptive. They create the world they claim to describe. And that leaves us with a really profound question to reflect on. What kind of human beings and what kind of society are we actually creating with the economic tools we use every single day?
See you in the next one. Subscribe, like, and comment.